to Mr. Zimmer for 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are exclusively for Rebecca Reid around chinook closures. So we heard after previous testimony from you and the minister that despite what you say, you won't listen to anglers and you won't listen to the science. Why not?
So we have an advisory process set up for salmon management with commercial, recreational, and First Nation harvesters and advisors. It is a very comprehensive process.
And excuse me, Ms. Reid, they gave you some advice and you completely disregarded it this spring. I'll move on to my second question. Two UBC studies recently indicated that there is an abundance of chinook while our southern resident killer whales are present in Canadian waters. It seems that you are bent, though, on closing things down despite what the science says. What takes precedent to you, the science or the closure ideology of 30 by 30?
So with regards to the decision around chinook closures, we do have a responsibility to support the southern resident killer whales as a species at risk that are endangered. And
two UBC studies recently said that there's an abundance of chinook at the times that they're in our Canadian waters, though.
The chinook salmon represents about 90% of the diet of those whales, and we have, I think, a responsibility to ensure that we provide enough fish at the right times and locations.
Two UBC studies, and I'll say it again, recently indicated that there's an abundance of chinook when they're in our Canadian waters, yet you closed it anyway. And I think what we're trying to understand, we've heard with the testimonies around science, is that when science is saying there's fish present sufficient and an abundance of fish for southern resident killer whales and you close it anyway, we wonder why. And that's what I've asked you. So I'm just curious. And what sets the precedent? The science, because the science clearly said there's enough fish, or the ideology of closure of 30 by 30?
So I think that the question about science is the important point, that when we look at science, it is a series of pieces of information. So you've got information from universities, we've got our own stock assessment scientists, we have a process to consider sort of the abundance of chinook, and it is not a single paper or a single study that determines that.
I'll get on to my third question, because Ms. Reid, when UBC, which has a great reputation around the world for its science and its capabilities, is saying that there's an abundance of fish, yet you close it anyway, I think that's why we ask you these questions. The example that I would bring up is Pender Bluffs. We were in Sydney, BC, just out of Sydney, BC. A great example of closing unnecessarily. We were there present in the area. We, of course, didn't go in because it was closed. But we've learned from Washington State data that southern resident killer whales are only in the area 7 to 10 days on average per year. That's for the entire year. Yet the closure is permanent and it's all year long. I guess I would ask you, with all the 5,000 added staff, full-time equivalent staff to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans over the last 6 years, why can you not manage a moving bubble zone like on the East Coast, where you simply manage and close the area where the whales are present, and when they're present, it's closed, and we'd all agree that that's a thing to do. But when the whales are not present, that it's open. So why would you not implement a moving bubble zone in an area like Pender Bluffs with all the added staff that have been added to DFO over the last number of years?
So we do have a comprehensive approach for managing the southern resident killer whales. But just to speak specifically to your question about Pender Bluffs, we have confirmed that area as one of the most frequently used areas, and for that reason, we believe
Washington State data has said the killer whales are only there from 7 to 10 days per year.
And I would add that the bubble zones are employed as a management tool in other areas. And so when it comes
why wouldn't you use it there if you know that the killer whales are there only 7 to 10 days a year? And it's such an important fishing area for the community. Why wouldn't you have it open when the whales aren't there?
So the reason for the closure is because of the importance of the area, the complexities of
You're not answering
managing.
my question.
I think I am. I think I am answering it. Actually, it's because of the importance of the area for that species.
You're going to close it unnecessarily